Hi, good evening class. This is Lisa Stacavich coming to you today to talk about socio-technical systems in hopes of improving the dichotomy of man and machine, or at least bringing that kind of subject matter to you. We will get started with just a little brief history on how this came about, how this term came about in the mid-20th century. As companies expanded, they needed more complex organization. Bureaucracy was kind of the main aspect of how individuals approached companies, or at least leaders, but that was not something that was going to work much longer. It was discovered that the human factor was really important. People were more aware of that, and of course, it was of big importance towards the race for profit. So just to go over a little bit more, it is my hope that I'll help you identify how businesses can create processes that take into consideration both people's needs while also creating the technology to suit those needs. As technology becomes increasingly complex, it can inadvertently deter a large number of people from interacting with it. Unfortunately, that is a downside of socio-technical systems. However, certainly that's not enough to keep people from doing that. Qualitative versus quantitative. We'll discuss people versus technology, how they both can combine and live harmoniously. And we also want to understand the relationship between those two. So what do people want in a work environment? Of course, that's a big question. Many people want many different things. Personally, and especially from the research that I've done, the simpler the better. At least that's my perspective. We want a simplified process to do our work, self-directed work teams. I do enjoy collaborating, and it's enjoyable to listen to different people's perspectives, try to see things from a different point of view, while also maintaining a good quality of work life. Technology can create an environment of rapid technological change, especially in particular fields. My husband, for one, is in the IT field, and I cannot keep up with what he does by any stretch of the imagination. My eyes just gloss over when he starts talking about work. So, but there's various degrees of complexity that could potentially deter people from expanding on that knowledge. I sometimes am not quick to want to learn about different technologies, but once I get into them, I do find they're not as hard as I think they're going to be. Because of all of the great degree of growth, of course, the market can get saturated with many different options, and that can make things difficult for companies to try to figure out which options they should go with. So there's various strengths and weaknesses, of course. There always is on any kind of concept, especially within an organization development idea or theory. So we'll focus on the strengths. Where the work is based on a collaboration of employees. It's not just about autonomy, it's about working together. It does provide an opportunity for employees to enhance their own skills, which I personally, appreciate. The number of managers at the top of the chain can be minimized as you have more progressive technology within the company. The need to have so many different people doing many different things becomes less. There is a great concern under the socio-technical system flag, or umbrella, that for those who gain the profit and those who create it, there's a great concern for those people. We'll go on to the weaknesses. Not having a defined set of steps can, of course, cause some communication breakdown. Autonomous groups are difficult to form due to unrestricted guidelines. Too much freedom equals the potential for incomplete tasks, and there is a lack of individuality. So there is a concern for the fact that people do want to have pride in their own work and what they've contributed on an individual basis. Of course, working as a collaboration does take away from that. There's no real restricted guidelines. There's no universal way that people will or people can follow based under this particular concept. So it seems that each company kind of has to figure it out on their own. So as far as the application goes, I'm going to kind of draw upon something personal here. And I I have an eclectic background as far as work goes. Before working at University of Texas in the dean's office at the business school, my career was in veterinary medicine. So I worked for 10 plus years as a veterinary technician, as a hospital manager, as a front end receptionist. You name it, I did it in veterinary medicine. So once I finished my undergrad, I wanted to get out of that profession and move on to higher education. So I still do relief work on occasion, like I am actually working a shift this weekend, but I work at an emergency animal hospital not far from my home. And I saw them recently go through a big transition where it was people versus technology. So they worked off of just paper charts, much like you see, even in your doctor's office, they have a manila folder, you have a paper chart, you write things down. They made a huge transition over to iPads, so everything was electronic. There were no paper charts on the outsides of the kennels anymore. Everything had to be conducted through the iPad. In the beginning, there was a lot of focus, of course, with this transition, and personally, I felt like their patient care could have been compromised only because when you're going to the chart at the kennel, you're laying eyes on the pet all the time. If you're looking at a big board on the wall, you're not looking at what's happening with that patient. You're not seeing, are they, urinating okay? Are they breathing? Are they doing okay? Are their gums still pink? These are all things as a veterinary technician that go through your mind. Of course, you're going to lay hands on the animal. You're going to get their vitals, listen to the heart, take a temperature. But it was a tough transition. So it was definitely a man versus machine type situation where, where people did not want to adhere to these new guidelines. There was a lot of pushback, but eventually things got up and running, and it was just a matter of change. People don't like change. I don't like change. But eventually everything ran more efficiently, and everybody adjusted. So it does just take time, and knowing that it's possible in this respect does give me hope for other areas of my work life as we move on. So thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry if I'm a little all over the place, but I definitely was very interested in this topic and wanted to make sure I included as many points as I could. Have a good evening. Thank you.